This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at WZRD via Zoom, Hannah Frank of Hannah Frank Group. Good morning, Hannah. We were just playing Is You Mine and Bad Girl's Diary.
Good morning. That's great to hear. Thanks for getting the music out to some more ears. I'm really happy to talk with you this morning.
We're happy to have you. Such beautiful songs, and we love the spirit and the message is very it's very artistic. Let's put it this way. So Hannah, when did you start singing, and how did you settle on this kind of folk music?
I started singing and playing guitar in my mid-teens, around age 15. There was an old guitar at my house. I think it was my aunt's, and just kind of knocking around. And I played that for a little bit. And then I got an electric guitar as a gift, and I played one chord and I felt like Jimi Hendrix. And I just thought, oh, this is so fun. Growing up, I never thought I could sing necessarily. I had no reason to think either way. But in my late high school, I started singing a little bit just to myself. And I thought, oh, this sounds all right. And so I kept doing it as a way to kind of explore my voice and wrote songs. And even though I enjoyed electric guitar when I started, I kind of circled back to acoustic guitar because I really felt connected to the 1960s kind of folk troubadour style. So I really liked that kind of solo folk style and just kept going with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of storytelling. I guess you like the storytelling of the folk, right? Troubadour?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was drawn to music like Woody Guthrie or early blues music, what's called rural blues music, blues music from the country. It's really intricate guitar finger picking and who doesn't like a good story? So I felt like that music let a story come through. Maybe more so. Not that I don't like rock music or all kinds of music, but that you could really hear the story come through. And people had lived lives, and they were sharing what I felt was real stories about their lives and things that were important to them, and that really attracted me to the music.
How was your training? Because I've seen your performances, on the videos, and you have you sing and you play your guitar seamlessly together. How did you train in vocals and guitar? And how was your training brought together? Did you do it on your own, or did you have a mentor?
Most of it was on my own. I think just the examples that I would see and hear. So in some ways, I just kind of developed it on my own and kept doing it through lots of trial and error and practice. And it wasn't until more recently, I'd say in the past 5 years, that I really started looking at music more and seeing what I could learn about it. Because folk music, you can kind of be intuitive and play and sing, and you don't really need to know what notes you're playing until you start working with other musicians. And then you're like, no, I do need to say, what this is. So more recently, there's been some great musicians I've seen through my work as a sound engineer that have been really inspiring. A singer named Ty Cooper. She sings a jazz idiom. She's really excellent. Watching her has been instructive. So I think that playing guitar and voice and singing together just came naturally to me. And now I'm really trying to learn it, to do it better or more, or be kind of speak in a musical language and not just my own language, kind of things that other people know too.
Are you also learning to like sing from the diaphragm, etc., and all the breath and the diaphragm and everything like that as well?
Yeah, I've done some more formal vocal stuff recently. Getting into jazz, I took a vocal class at the Bloom School of Jazz in Chicago. Spider Saloff teaches that, and studied with a teacher named Elaine Dame a little bit. She's really excellent. And there's a real difference. I think naturally, storytelling music comes out of your speaking voice. And if you want to sing, especially something as robust as jazz music, where singing is very acrobatic. I've seen amazing jazz singers that can do all these things. And that really is something that requires training and practice, like being an acrobat. It's one thing just be able to do your own thing. But if you really want to do some amazing things with your voice, you have to train. So that's what I'm working on more so now.
Is it that how the music came together the past 5 years? Were you working on that, and now it's coming to fruition? Do you feel?
Oh yeah, a little bit. I think it does take time to develop these skills, and being able to have the environment, working with other great musicians that are wonderful musicians in their own right, I think has helped me as an original musician, working with the great musicians in my band, Meg Thomas on percussion,
Yes.
Victor Sanders on guitar, and Benny Miller on bass. I was always astonished where they would follow me with what I was playing. So there's kind of an element of improv. It certainly wasn't jazz music, but there was kind of an element where we could do different things in the music that weren't planned. And they were just amazing at following that and giving me opportunities to play and sing in new ways, and then working with some jazz and blues musicians in the project I did recently, which is a 45 record. I have my product placement here if you want to check that out. And that was really amazing because I was in kind of a new element and working with musicians in the jazz and blues realm. So I'd say working with other people, really helps, because I think there's a certain amount of osmosis, and where you have to just kind of figure out what you're doing in the moment. So working with people really helps.
Yes, absolutely. Well, how did you develop your network? How did you find these great musicians to work with you in the Hannah Frank group?
Sure. It happened pretty organically. Victor Sanders, the guitar player, brought in the other musicians, Meg and Ben, and I had a chance to network with a lot of musicians with my job at Chicago Acoustic Underground. It's a podcast, and they did events and all kinds of things, and they really focus on original music. And I worked with them, so I was talking with bands and musicians all the time to coordinate events. We did a songwriter showcase and some things like that. So that, and also, I think I mentioned I'm a sound tech, so I would work with bands at live shows. So just meeting musicians in the scene through doing shows and putting together shows, I think really helped.
Yes, absolutely.
And it just happened naturally. I got lucky with it, just kind of happened organically. I didn't have to hunt people down or anything. So.
Yes, well, I guess your message needed to get out there, and the fortune was smiling upon you and brought the right people to work with you. Joining us also is Bill Morton, our co-host, president of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. How are you today, Bill? And Bill, this is Hannah. Hannah, Bill.
Oh yeah,
great to meet you.
We've met before, and I saw her at Mayne Stage. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, now we can.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I love Hannah's music, the Hannah Frank group, and got an opportunity to check out your video, Hannah, where you're in the cemetery. And one of the fun things I like to do, I do videography in Rogers Park in Chicago. I was trying to figure out which cemetery, just by sight, with those buildings in the background. And can you tell us what cemetery that was?
Sure.
In the video?
Yes, there's two cemeteries right next to each other near Addison and I think Clark. And the one on the north side of the street is very nice. And the videographer and I, a friend and great musician himself, Greg Jackson Combs, we went there thinking we'll do the photo shoot here, or the video shoot, excuse me. And they were like, no, you're not allowed to go in the cemetery, but you can go in the one on the south side of the street, which is, as a cemetery should be, very creepy and so it was a lot more dramatic looking. So it's near Addison Street, just north of Wrigley Field is the site of that video.
And so what is the name of that song? And then the second part of that question is, it was such a moving song, and you were talking about the eyes, and then you mentioned your father, and there was a Frank grave. Was that your family grave? And was it about your father or about a daughter?
It was not about my father. It was, well, two things. The Frank grave there was just a coincidence, and the videographer thought, oh, we'll capture this. So it looks like there's some story there, but the part of the story that's set in a grave yard is actually set in Arkansas. I was on a road trip there quite a while ago, and I was just really taken by these humble graves. I don't know if they were made out of wood, but I mean, it was so humble and moving. And I remember we stopped there on the way kind of in the early morning, and there was fog rolling in, and I think one of them said like "gone but not forgotten," or it was just this. That was kind of really the setting of where my mind was at when I wrote the song. And then this was kind of the modern cemetery that just happened to be in the video. And I think it was a kind of a combination of maybe I was thinking about my grandfather, or some just different imagery kind of was floating in, and it just kind of all came together. I guess the person with pitch black eyes is kind of a ghost figure maybe in the song. So it is one of the songs where I can't really say what it's about. I was just kind of almost like dreamlike, just kind of combining imagery and things like that. But it came from that one experience in a real cemetery, which was very powerful.
I really did enjoy that song and the other ones you sent over as well. So I used to be with the Chicago Ghost Hunters group back a long time ago. We used to visit cemeteries all the time. So I've seen those ones that are like old wooden ones in country towns and small gated little cemeteries in different places. So yeah, I always wonder if I could recognize the location of where it was filmed.
Right. Yeah, there's a couple of remarkable cemeteries in Chicago, some different ones.
And what was the name of that song again?
That song is called Pitch Black Eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was a one we played quite a bit in Hannah Frank group. We had some cool layers of sounds and things happening in that tune.
So is there a difference between Hannah Frank group and Hannah Frank?
There's obviously more people in Hannah Frank group. We came up with that very original name, just to kind of put it all together. It was Hannah Frank Trio, Hannah Frank Quartet, all that stuff. We're like, let's just call it group so we can, have any format that we want. We've had some special guests sit in and things like that have been a lot of fun. And as much as it's been a voice of my music, and I've been really lucky to work with those musicians, I also have some solo material that I have written, some a very long time ago, some more recent, that I would like to perform solo as well. And I think the difference with the group and solo is you really have to be more honest and really see where you're at with the audience when you're playing solo. With the group, you've got a lot of music behind you, and that's there to support you. So I think it's good to perform in different ways and connect with the audience and with different material. So we'll see how it all evolves. So
how do you tap into your creativity to write your songs? Because is there like a special place that especially inspires you? For instance, where did you write the Pitch Black Eyes? Do you still remember?
I wrote that song just, sitting down with my guitar. There wasn't anything special about it, but I do think that's a good question, because in the past, I have really been able to channel singing and songwriting if I'm in a stairwell, because there's great acoustics. So just finding a good stairwell where you can hear yourself and listen to the music and just kind of be isolated and really hear it, I think is really important. So anywhere where you can hear yourself. So that song in particular, I probably just sat down and wrote it a little bit. I was looking at some country finger picking stuff. But I think just having a good place where you can really hear yourself and feel quiet around you is a great place to have creativity come through.
That's funny that you say that, because a couple of years back, I was writing some poetry for my poetry slam, and then the best place for me to write was on the Foster bus, actually. And even though it was not quiet, I had there was that quietness in my mind with everything going around beside me, like the people walking back and forth, the buildings flying past. It was quiet, and then I always get my best inspiration on the 92 Foster bus.
That's excellent. That's a great story as well. I love it.
When you got your gigs, such as Mayne Stage, House of Blues, Uncommon Ground, could you give us a little insight? Was it just the connections, or were there any special stories that got you connected with those places?
Sure, those were some really excellent high-profile gigs I was really proud of, and the Mayne Stage shows. The Mayne Stage previously had a pub in the front called Act One Pub. This is in Rogers Park. It was a theater, I think, back in the day, like a movie theater, and now it's a music venue. And at the time, through this organization, Chicago Acoustic Underground, that I mentioned, we were putting on songwriter showcases in the pub, and that was a lot of fun. We'd have people play. The musicians got food. I remember one musician was like, "There's white cloth napkins." Like, oh my God, like this is, you know, a fun gig. The musicians were treated well. It was a great sense of community. We got to all share our songs, and I think because we were doing that, they also were like open to, if there was an opening in the big room, they were like, you know, could your band play? And I was like, yes. And it was really exciting at the time because it's a beautiful room, a great room in Rogers Park. So I think by doing other things for a venue, you know, doing showcases or, you know, working with Chicago Acoustic Underground helped, because we were doing all kinds of shows. And the other show at House of Blues, I believe I did that because the promoter, Swizzle Steve is the name he goes by. I did a lot of shows with him and bands he was promoting as a sound tech. So I think he knew that I had a band also. So I think kind of by doing things other than just your music, that's when you find some opportunities to play these shows. So it was really exciting to get on a big stage like that. Definitely.
Yes, yes. And what about Uncommon Ground?
Uncommon Ground, I have worked there as a sound tech also, but a lot of the shows I did were through Chicago Acoustic Underground there, and also just approaching them and saying, hey, I have this idea for a residency. I did one where we combined spoken word and music. So we had poets come read their work and then have bands play. So just kind of coming up with an idea to pitch to them. But Uncommon Ground is another great listening room in the city. So that was really great to be able to work with them.
Did you become connected with a Chicago Acoustic Underground through your sound engineer work, or was it something else?
It was something else. I had moved to, again, kind of a lark. I had moved to the Pilsen neighborhood, which is a great place in Chicago. And I was needing extra work to keep things going. And as a freelancer, I just put an ad out on Craigslist for music marketing. And I thought, oh, I'll be helping some band fill out an Excel sheet or something. You know, I just figured this will just be a little extra thing. And it really ended up being quite a big part of my life for about 6 or 7 years. And they reached out to me and they were like, oh, well, we do original music and it's acoustic and we interview artists and we need, people to, write about them and promote shows and stuff. So it ended up being this really great connection. Michael Teach that runs it is an excellent person. Michael Narvaez, an engineer with them. So I contributed as a sound tech with them somewhat, and also booking shows and working with artists. So I just, put myself out there. Hey, I want to help. And someone said, hey, we do need help, and it ended up being a much bigger role than I thought, and a lot of fun. So I think, just putting yourself out there and being able to help people is a way to get connected with various organizations and things like that.
You mentioned that you live in Pilsen, and Pilsen is such a beautiful neighborhood. Huge artwork, murals in the buildings and everything. A huge park there where there's a lot of activities like protests and different things like that. A lot of social justice issue kind of events and things. I was wondering, depending upon where you lived, where you lived in the past and where you're living now, does that inspire your music in anything?
It does. That's a great question, because I really have lived kind of out in the country, so to speak, or kind of a rural environment, and in the city. And there's really different music tradition in both places. And being in a city, you're exposed to so many different types of music, especially in Chicago. I mean, there's Mexican-American art and music in Pilsen, or, downtown, there's blues, jazz, all, international music that you see in Chicago that you just don't see in other places. And that's been really inspiring, whether it's just, hey, like, oh my gosh, I've never heard this rhythm before, or like salsa or samba music, or just hearing things that you're not going to hear otherwise. So I think that's really given me a urge to explore music in a lot of ways, is hearing that different music.
And we also recently met with you at a jazz club in Chicago. So where does jazz fit into all this?
Jazz, I feel for me right now is kind of like the pinnacle, like the little North Star that I'm like, oh gosh, it'd be so cool to play like that. And how do you get there? And it's, you know, this long road of light years from not light years, but just the amount of time and effort that you put into it. I see jazz musicians play and I think how many years of practice went into this performance, even if it's an hour or two, but how many hours led up to being able to do this. So, for me, I mean, it's good to just believe in yourself and I mean, there's people that can pull off an amazing song with, 3 chords and the truth, or, just kind of knowing how to use what you have. But I do really admire jazz and blues players quite a bit, and just kind of looking at how to learn that language. So I feel like that's something that I'd like to work on, as well as my original music, kind of in a folk vein, but also add some more blues and jazz elements to it and see where it goes.
Yeah, we look forward to
but
that.
Yeah, the jazz music in the city is great.
Did you ever have stage fright?
Not really. I actually feel really comfortable on stage. I sometimes can be awkward in real life, but I like to think once I get on stage, I feel really comfortable and I want to, tell a story, or just, with all the time I've put into playing and writing my songs, that's my chance to get them out there, or have people hear them, or, hopefully tell a story that connects with someone. So I like to try to feel as comfortable as possible on stage. Mm-hmm. So.
Yes, that rings true with some of the artists that we see, like such as America's Got Talent. They're very nervous, but once they start performing, then it's like they're transformed into another person because they're enjoying what they're doing, and that seems to be what you're doing as well.
Mm-hmm. Right, kind of being in the moment and not worrying about it. I mean, even if something happens, right, just we're all human, and just going forth and trying to tell stories and relate to one another. But exactly, when you're performing, you can kind of get in the moment.
And also, while you're performing, maybe you're more self-conscious. Maybe you realize you made a mistake, but maybe the audience doesn't realize it. So you just continue on.
Exactly, right. They don't know. And that's one of the things too, I've noticed the difference between original music. You can often get away with something. They don't know the song that you wrote. You can change it up in the moment. But with music that's more orchestrated, where everybody's got to be together and things like that, you don't have that wiggle room. And I guess that goes into maybe improv, where it's more focused exploration. But yeah, when you're solo, you just kind of can do the show as you'd like, because no one knows how it's supposed to go.
Did you ever, the Hannah Frank group, ever collaborate with another music group?
That's a great question. There's a poet named Catriel that we were talking about doing some music behind her work. Mostly, I mean, we played bills with other bands, but we didn't formally collaborate with another group. We have a lot of bands that we played shows with. We had some special guests, a guitarist, the late Mickey Thomas. It was really an honor to play with him. Harp player, a really genius harp player, Martin Leong, sat in with us. So we have had various special guests that have come in and added things to the music, and then just performed with other bands, but we didn't have a chance to actually collaborate. So that's an interesting idea. I will add that to the mix. That could be really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. How did the pandemic affect your work?
The pandemic really allowed me time to sit back and ask, what am I doing? And what, it's easy to get into the mix of play a show, promote, rinse, repeat, and just keep going. So for me, it really allowed me the time to sit back and look at how I could work on improving my music in a way I wanted it to go. And so just a chance to step back, which I think is really hard to do when you're in the grind and in the moment. So I thought that was very useful, at least for me.
Did you find that you're writing in a different way now versus before the pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's more focused. There's a great site, not that I have spent quite a bit of time learning online over the pandemic, and a great website I could recommend to songwriters is Songtown. And they really talk about, how to write in more of a pop style, or a way that's more accessible among other things. But for me, that's what I've been taking out of it, where my music can be very kind of all over the place. Like I was saying about my lyrics, you know, kind of dreamlike or, you know, stream of consciousness. And so I think that now with various things I'm learning, it's a little more focused. And so I'm hoping that that'll help it be more, I wouldn't say accessible or danceable, just, you know, something that's more about the music and not just about the lyrics. So that's been really fun for me to learn some different ways. So
and
of songwriting.
For your inspiration, like I was listening to, I think it's called "Diary of a Mad Girl." Is that the song?
Yeah, or Mad Girl's Diary, very close. And it's really a takeoff of the Ozzy Osbourne song "Madman's Diary." And I was just kind of riffing off that idea. And so this was Mad Girl's Diary. And just from kind of different scenes in life, I guess, and then the refrain about the diary that we write every day, you know, as we go through life. But it was taken kind of as an offshoot of the Ozzy Osbourne song. So
you even mentioned Ozzy's name several times in I think the chorus. Were you influenced by Ozzy Osbourne?
You know, just growing up, my older brother had a Ozzy Osbourne poster, and I remember looking at it and, you know, maybe as a kid and, you know, who is this guy? And so learning about the music that way. And then, you know, just having that in kind of my lexicon of music to draw from. So just music from different eras, you know, even though it's in a folk vein, I guess I'm still referencing music from other genres and artists in a way. Because there's a lot of emotion and power in certain types of heavier music too. And so I was kind of drawing from that.
Right. Were you able to get any pandemic relief funds for your group?
Not for the music group specifically, but for myself, I was able to get some funds through unemployment and things. I know COVID was a very difficult time for a lot of people, especially artists.
Yes.
People that had, you know, been making their living off of playing live. So because I had some, various jobs, including an employee job, I was able to get some unemployment money. And I do have my friends to thank for that. I had various friends, Randy Cromwell, a great writer, who was encouraging me to, you know, because you had to follow all these steps, and to get any money, it was very confusing for a while. And a great guitar player and drummer in a band, the Walkie Talkies, you know, different people that were resources that I could be encouraged by to help. So, and I had some, you know, just various musicians that we were all supportive of one another. So that's good. But I didn't get funds for the group specifically. But for myself, I was able to survive.
That's good. That's good.
Well,
how did the artist community help one another during the pandemic in other ways as well?
Sure. One really great example I saw in Chicago was an organization called Chicago Blues Network. They put on shows called Trading Fours on YouTube. If you search Chicago Blues Network Trading Fours, and it was a lot of blues artists that performed, and it gave a format for people to donate directly to the artists and also support an organization called Firehouse Community Arts Center in Lawndale that helps kids and young adults get out of the cycle of violence. And it was a great way to support artists and support the community. So I thought that was one great example. And I saw artists too get more interested in platforms like Patreon and things like that, where you're, I have a Patreon also, if anyone wants to check it out. And that it's just a way for people to support artists and help keep them going through times like this.
So is it much better now, would you say, the circumstances for artists now? Is it how sustainable does it feel now versus how it was before the pandemic?
I think it has been an interesting learning time for artists, where they had to come up with different ways, to connect with audiences like live stream, and also different ways to get income. I think online teaching, I imagine, increased quite a bit, just because you could do it. I mean, it existed before, but I think people are really into Zoom lessons and things like that even more so now. So I think by having that jolt, I mean, I wasn't in a position where I was getting all my income from performing like some artists were. And I think it really impacted them more. But I feel like it's more stable now. Everyone's like, is it going to go back to normal? Is it, it's kind of at a point where it's a little tenacious, but I think it's heading in that direction, and just kind of the creative ways that people came up with to keep things going with live streams and things. But I know a lot of artists are very excited to be back in front of people performing. Makes a big difference. So I think being away from it made people really appreciate it more. So if anything, hopefully audiences and the performers is just so much more appreciative of the space to do live music.
Right.
So I think that's a good place to be. It's just in appreciation for it and how to make it better.
I know during the recording artists recorded at their home studios with their laptops or whatnot, or at least a portion of their albums before they brought it over to the studio. Have you recorded at home, or do you normally record in the studio? And I've heard your live recordings as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I have kind of a unique perspective on it because I have been a live sound engineer for so long. And I think because I do live sound, I thought, oh, it'll be so easy to do studio sound, but it's such a different animal. There's so much of a learning curve with the software, where I have a quick show and tell. I, for the longest time, just used cassette tape because you could just play it, hear it back. And that was all the home recording I needed, because I just wanted to get ideas down and things like that. So it really, I have a little bit of a very modest home setup now just to get ideas down. But to me, that's a little old school, maybe a little dated. And I am finally getting caught up because of COVID. I'm like, I can record digitally at least a little bit now. But for a long time, I just, playing live with a band, playing and going to a studio to do the recording was important to me, because I think it gives the music a little bit more significance somehow. I mean, you have to be ready that day. They're recording something that really is happening. With home recording, which can be a good thing. You have time to work out ideas and try a bunch of things, but there's something with music about being in the moment that I think going into a studio can capture more, or a live show. So I actually consciously try to keep my home recording pretty minimal and really try to put the focus on, is the song good? Is my performance good? Is what kind of all those other elements of music.
Where did you train for your sound engineering?
That probably was just all on the job. I got into sound engineering kind of on accident. I just answered an ad for a company called B&B Productions in the Northwest suburbs. And I was very intimidated at first, which I think is a good lesson for anybody trying anything new. I thought, there's so many lights and buttons. This isn't for me. And the guy that was training me was like, no, it's okay. Just, stay here, wrap a cable or something. And, over 15 years later, here I am, being a sound engineer. So I think it's like giving yourself a chance to try something. And I found that I really enjoyed it because I could, listen to the band and make little adjustments. And I found I think it's really helped my listening skills. And so it's been a really interesting opportunity and journey. And again, just by going out there, and I didn't think I could do it. And then it ended up being something that I've really enjoyed.
Well,
that's been exciting to get into it and just, and see what I can do and help musicians get their sound out there.
Yes. Yeah, that kind of rings true with what happened to me as well. When I started at the radio, I was very intimidated by the soundboard, but now it's second nature. I didn't think I could handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So
things can seem intimidating, but once you get into them, it's all right.
Right. When you record when you're doing your own live shows, such as some of the recordings that we see, do you have anything to do with the sound engineering, or is it someone else? For your own shows?
Sure. For smaller shows that are more songwriter based, I'm often doing the sound also. And sometimes that can get overwhelming, where I've had shows where I'm booking it, playing it, and doing sound. And it's kind of a lot. I can do it. At the Songwriter Showcase, I did it, and I've done Songwriter Showcases at New Rhythm Arts Center, which is also a great place in Rogers Park for shows and teaching and learning. Definitely check it out if you're into music. So at larger shows, of course, they have their sound techs and crew there, but at smaller songwriter shows, you'll often see me at the board as well as on stage.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Do you have any upcoming shows?
I do have one coming up in April 24th. It's a Sunday. It's at the Montrose Saloon on 2933 West Montrose. And it's in the afternoon. I'm kicking things off there Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. On the 24th for the International Pop Overthrow Festival, which is a festival put together by a gentleman named David Bash, who has put on shows in Chicago and other cities with a collection of various bands that he curates. And it's, I think, internationalpopoverthrow.com or something like that. So it's part of a festival or group of shows. And I remember I'm going to be playing there on Sunday.
Overthrow was over at Red Line Tap. Did you do a lot over there?
Yes.
Was around?
I was a sound tech there. Again, a common theme. Where then I did sound for the International Pop Overthrow shows, and they did have shows at the Red Line Tap, which was a great venue in Rogers Park, like the perfect dive bar there for a long time.
Home away from home. And shout out to Brettley.
Yes, so they did shows there.
Brettley, shout out to Brettley. He was the best as well over there.
Yes, shout out to Brettley.
So Montrose Saloon, there are two different kinds of shows. There's the outdoor show, and then there's with the fire pit, and then there's the indoor show. You're playing indoors, correct?
I'm 99% sure it's indoors. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they've been pretty active with having music there post-COVID. Lots of different shows and things there.
The weather is good for outdoor, but you being a sound engineer, let's pick your brain a little bit. For outdoor shows, is it more difficult to control the sound versus indoor?
A little bit. The scientific reason is the humidity or in the air. There's more in the way of the sound waves. So indoor, it's usually a little more controlled. Outdoors, generally, most outdoor shows are just kind of loud because they just have to be to kind of push the air through the space. So there's, I think it's a lot more about, is it going to rain? Do we have plastic to cover everything with? Kind of like the unknown factors that can make outdoor shows a challenge. But at the same time, the big festivals like Chicago Blues Fest, I think is happening this year, and Jazz Fest, there's something exciting about being outside with everybody and, kind of enjoying the air and the atmosphere with people. So I think that makes it worth it, and they can be a whole lot of fun.
Well,
so yeah, there's definitely different challenges with each one.
Mm-hmm. And advantages and challenges.
Right.
WZRD Chicago, being a nonprofit radio station, must be responsible to the community we serve. WZRD is mandated to file quarterly issues with the FCC on non-entertainment community-focused programming. We like to assess the community for these quarterly issue topics with 3 questions. First, what is most important to you, Hannah Frank?
So most important in a community sense?
Oh, to you as an individual, actually.
Okay. I think everybody in a community feeling safe. I think for adults and kids, that if there's violence or stress in the environment, you can't learn, you can't grow, you can't be yourself, you can't, contribute to society. And so I think just the safety of everybody. I mean, I know that's very general, but I think it's just so important for everybody to feel some sense of ownership and invested in their community and where they live, and being able to make it a great place for everybody, because everybody has some, gift to offer, some something that's of use, and just having everyone be able to contribute and feel safe and good. It's an ideal, but I think it's really important.
That's very understandable, because that's almost a basic need, survival.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Right.
Second, what long-term problem must we address?
I thought about this, and I thought of it just in terms of kind of a local thing, just with Chicago, let's say, schools, and just having every kid feel that they can have a safe place to learn. And I think that's just really important. And it's not just the supplies, but feeling that, because I feel I've noticed myself during COVID, just you have to kind of slow yourself down in order to get to a point where you can learn and kind of choose your path. And so just having everyone be able to experience that. So I think just specifically with kids and making sure that they have what they need to learn. If a kid has a environment they don't feel safe in, and they need to feel better when they go to school or get in a place where they can learn and grow. So I think that's just really important again. Mm-hmm. And I think it takes time to kind of get to that point and keep checking ourselves what are ways we can improve that.
Well, that's very reminiscent of how all of us have dealt with COVID over these a couple of years. We had to slow down, make sure that we were safe, even though we weren't able to function as fast as we had before. Safety was very important.
Right, because in that speed, and you get into a routine and all those things, and that can be really helpful, to keep life going at a certain pace. But when it's slowed down, right, you can really have time to assess things and hopefully make improvements for ourselves as individuals and for the community. So having that space to do that has been really great. So I think these are really good questions to ask. To find out what's important, because we so often don't get to ask ourselves those questions.
Right. As for myself, even I noticed that I just had to rest more in order to be healthy and well enough to, let's say, work in my essential worker job. So I just had to get more sleep.
Mm-hmm. Right. That too. We can kind of rob ourselves of the natural things by kind of trying to do too much. So finding the right amount of stuff to be real productive and effective without burning out is very good.
Right. Third, what problem must be resolved now?
Oh, world peace could start now. I think would be a great time. It's sometimes so challenging because it's hard to know all the factors that go into these problems that end up being really big. And there's some, I'm referring to the Ukraine right now, but there's, I think, so many other humanitarian crises, for lack of a better word, that are happening all over the world right now that we're not hearing about too. And it's really difficult to, just what a lot of people are going through at different times, and how to solve it. I don't know, but I think starting with ourselves and our communities is really important, and stepping up when we have to make a point, not sit idly by. We live in a culture, I think, that kind of values convenience and everything, just scroll and everything will be fine, or, just kind of ways to get active and involved and really make a difference with people. I mean, it's so silly, but I like just helping someone in your community, in your neighborhood, someone that you see on the street that looks like they're in trouble. Like, don't just walk by. I mean, obviously use your head, nothing dangerous, but if someone really needs help, we can't just like look away from all that, because then it becomes a bigger problem. And so yeah, just kind of staying vigilant and helping as much as we can with each other is really important.
Right, so, yeah, that's not silly at all. You help one person, and then and then that person sees how that help them, and they're more likely to help someone else. It spreads.
Right, it does, and that's what I can only hope. Right, where you help one person, and they say, "Hey, maybe the world isn't completely dark or completely all messed up." If there's just one ray of light where we can keep that going and helping each other, it is really important. Because people are struggling so much, and you see nowadays with social media, I mean, you see right into people's lives, like what they're going through, their house is bombed out or things like that, and it's very moving to see people that are right there, experiencing that kind of stuff. But exactly, we can enjoy what we have when we do have peace, because we take it for granted. You can just wake up and, you know, you live with a roof over your head, and there's food, and there's people that are not experiencing that. And yeah, so I really appreciate that encouragement, right? Where just doing one thing can just help lead the way for other people doing one thing too. And it can just grow from there.
Yes, keep those rays of light going. And that actually ties in with your earlier answer too about the world peace and finding more about underneath the surface about the different problems. Actually, Bill and I were discussing the situation in Ukraine the last couple of days about what led up to this. So there's always more to what you see on the news.
There is, and it's important to learn about that. And it's too bad sometimes that it takes such a major event to look at what's under there, but there's no reason to until you see, oh, this really is a problem and what led up to it. So I agree, it's a time to learn as well about what contributes to these kind of situations, and because there's always so many factors and a lot of histories and things that go into major events like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, Hannah Frank, if our listeners want to learn more about you and follow you and your music, learn more about your music, where should they go?
If they have the internet and they can go to hannahfrankmusic.com, that's the best place. They can buy the 45 record or support me on Patreon, and also randomchancerecords.com. That's the record label that helped put out the 45. And that is a great place to learn as well. Lots of great artists are on that site as well that I'm proud to be part of.
Long live vinyl.
I'm sorry, what's the question? I missed.
Long live the vinyl record.
Long live the vinyl, right? Vinyl returns. I hear there's a very long wait right now to get vinyl because a lot of people are pressing it. So that it was very exciting to be able to do that. But yeah, vinyl is special. It has a great sound quality when you put it on.
Another question, since you brought it up, how did you get connected with the Random Chance Records?
Through Random Chance Records, a fellow Chicago musician, Martin Leong, who plays harp, he's been on, has done several albums with Random Chance Records. And I had a couple songs as a kind of a jazz demo that I threw their way. And Rick Congress, who leads the record label, and also wrote a book on a blues mandolin player. I have it back here, which is really awesome. And also just curates this amazing collection of artists, was interested in putting it out. So I was able to do that. And it was a really exciting process to work with some blues and jazz musicians on two tunes that were not my own. I'm singing Comes Love, which is a song from 1939, and a song Walkin' After Midnight, which Patsy Cline also sang. So it was an opportunity to get out of the original singer-songwriter headspace and get into being a vocalist. And it was a really exciting process.
Well, we'll try to play a couple of those Comes Love, and I don't know if we have Walking After Midnight, but we do have Comes Love. We're just having a little problem with the downloads right now, but we'll play them later afterwards.
Okay, that's super exciting.
Well, Hannah Frank, thank you so much for joining us today and discussing and describing Hannah Frank Group. And also, thank you so much, Bill Morton, President of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, for co-hosting with us today.
Thank you, Hannah and Wizard.
Okay. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yes, talk to you soon. Thank you.
Okay.